We live in a paralyzed city, a city with a dysfunctional transport system, a city that is stuck, a city that was once celebrated as a green city in the sun, a city on the move, and that was an envy of its neighbors, but not anymore. This city that we love so much, this city that we call our home, is Nairobi. But this city of ours loses 18 billion shillings annually just from traffic jams. And at any given day, Nairobi residents spend more than 2 hours stuck in traffic. You have to give it up to us Kenyans. We've gotten so used to being stuck in traffic that we even have a song about it. Niko kwa jam na kam, which loosely translates to I'm stuck in traffic, but I'm coming. This is a line employers can no longer stand to hear, and one that children have had to replace with good night, mom, and good night, dad. We've gotten so accustomed to being stuck in traffic that we just reshuffle things around to accommodate this mess. Children as young as 5 wake up as early as 5 to go to school 5 kilometers away. It shouldn't be this way. Our children need to sleep, at least just a little longer. I'd like to see, by a show of hands, how you travel, how you commute on a daily basis. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. How many of you use private cars on a daily basis? Don't be shy, there's no wrong or right answer. How many use public transport? How many walk? And how many ride bicycles? How many use motorcycles? Good. So there are no wrong or right answers, but how do Nairobians travel? A study done in 2014 showed that a mere 13% of road users in Nairobi use private cars. Majority use public transport or are pedestrians. And we all know at any one time, anybody using public transport or anybody using private cars or taxi is a pedestrian. So ideally, we are all pedestrians. But is this what we see when we look outside? Do we see space for cars or do we see space for pedestrians? Your guess is as good as mine. We see cars, private cars to be exact. Our transport choices don't just affect the time we spend with our loved ones, but it also affects our health and our well-being. A study done by the World Health Organization showed that 1 in every 10 Kenyans is obese, and 50% of all deaths and 55% of all hospital admissions are due to non-communicable diseases. Diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, preeclampsia, you name it, they're all on the rise. Now, I'm not solely blaming our transport choices to all this, but surely they've created a conducive environment for laziness, for poor diet, for pollution, for isolation, for mental illness. I recently bumped into a study, another study by the World Health Organization, that showed that mental illness is on the rise in Kenya. You might not be aware, but your transport choice, the choice between walking, cycling, or using private car, is a decision on how you want your life to be. Mental illness can easily be solved by exercise. Exercise produces the happy hormones, the feel-good hormones that can reduce depression, tension, anxiety. But no, we choose our metal boxes. I feel sad to break this to you, but our transport choices don't just affect our personal health, but it also affects the future of our kids. We found a good planet, a healthy planet, a green planet, but we're leaving them with trash. Harsh, I'm sorry, but the truth has to be said. You see, the transport sector in Kenya contributes to 40% of greenhouse gas emissions. That is not a small figure. You might not be aware, but different transport modes have different carbon footprints. And walking and cycling essentially have zero carbon footprints. So basically, the choice you make every day on how you travel is a choice on whether you want to save or kill the planet. So how have we been fixing this transport problem that we keep talking about? For decades, we've been doing something called expanding roads. We build highways, we build superhighways, we build bypasses, overpasses, underpasses, you name it. But all these seem to be counterintuitive because the more you build, the more they'll come. You cannot build a nice tarmacked highway and expect I will not want to own a car. I will buy a car. I will stop using public transport. I'll stop walking. I'll want to enjoy the new tarmac. This is Thika Superhighway. It was built to reduce traffic in Nairobi. Several lanes. Looks nice. But this is the reality on the ground. We are stuck. It looks good on the picture, the first picture, but people are not moving. So how are other cities dealing with traffic? I mean, what Nairobi is going through is not anything new. Cities around the world have had phases of building superhighways, flyovers, bypasses, footbridges, but then years of experiencing never-ending traffic jams, pollution levels increasing, they came to the realization that the system is not working. They need to fix things. So what did they do, or what are they doing? They're taking space from cars and giving it back to the majority. As I had said, 13% of Nairobians use private cars, but when you look outside, majority of the road space is dedicated to cars. So now these cities around the world, cities like Copenhagen, Amsterdam, Kigali, Dar es Salaam, are taking back space from cars, either for the movement of cars or the cars that are parked, and giving it back to pedestrians and creating more room for cyclists. Cyclists are the forgotten few. So having a transformed city, having a city with people who can move, doesn't just happen by chance. These transformations require innovative ideas, they require courage, they require people who are frustrated, tired, angry enough to demand change. So I got tired, so I wanted change. This is me, several months ago. I decided that I wanted to prove a point. So I cycled from the first month to the 9th month of my pregnancy. This is me at 8 months. As I had said, transformations don't just happen. They require courage, they require confidence, they require creativity, and sometimes you need to be a little different. And this is how I was sharing my voice, by being different. I run an initiative called Critical Mass Nairobi. And as you've heard, it's currently the largest gathering of non-competitive cyclists in Africa. We are a group of more than 500 cyclists, give or take 100 plus or less, 100, who come together once every month and cycle the streets of Nairobi. We go to different neighborhoods. We go to Kibera, we go to South B, South C, Eastlands, Kilimani, Kileleshwa, you name it. We will cycle it. We are trying to transform our transport system by putting people back on bicycles, Bicycles, for the longest time, have been assumed to be the poor man's mode of transport or an elitist sport. But we are changing that. This is us. We are everyone. We ride, whether it's raining, whether it's sunny outside. As long as it's the last Saturday of every month, we will be out on our roads. We want to take back space from motorists. And we share positive messages when we do this. We don't want to only look like we are fighting motorists, but we encourage them. They could be spending time on bicycles and getting healthier and enjoying themselves and lessening the stress that they're currently having in their cars. We have women, children, we have everybody. We've opened up the city to tourists. Many people who come to critical mass would never imagine themselves riding in certain parts of the city, but we are changing that. We've managed somehow, through our persistence and by having children and women and everyone on our rides, we've managed to penetrate the thick skins of policymakers. And now, believe it or not, every new road being designed in Nairobi is required to have a footpath and a cycle track. So how did all this begin? All this happened 5 years ago as I was going through an experience that is common to all Nairobians leaving work at 5 in the evening. I was stuck in traffic, in a gridlock that begs the question, what are they thinking? You look at motorists and you're like, how did you even think to do that? It doesn't make sense. So 5 years ago, leaving work, I was going through these emotions, 5 stages of sitting in traffic jam. This is something I'm sure most of you have experienced. So the first stage, you're in your office. You're probably thinking about the food you left in the fridge, how you're going to go back and enjoy it, or the movie that you had paused and you think, oh, I'll probably go back and see, the next episode. So I was visualizing a blissful commute back home. I was in denial. And then I go outside, and I realize, hey, I wasn't the only one who got the memo on the blissful commute home. There's everybody on the road. But, I'm still willing to risk it. I'm still taking the car. But I'm angry now because there are more people on the road than I had imagined. Then the third stage is bargaining. At this point, I'm in my car, and I realize maybe I should have carpooled with Maureen, or I should have walked, or maybe I could have stayed longer in the office. So I'm bargaining with myself. Next time I'm not going to do this. Next time I'll probably leave sooner, leave at 4 and not at 5. The fourth stage is depression. So at this point, you realize you're not moving, you're stuck. And sadness creeps in, and you know that you're not going to make it home for dinner another day. The last stage is acceptance. So at this point, you're an empty shell of a driver. Might as well switch off the car and just wait. There's nothing else you can do because you're not moving. But 5 years ago, as I was going through these emotions, and before I settled on the acceptance phase, I saw something outside. I saw 2 men walking and 1 pushing a bicycle. They were happy. I was miserable. Mark you, it had rained, so the roads were not dry, they were wet. But they looked like they were having a time of their lives. And I sat in that gridlock. I contemplated. I could actually see the roof to my apartment. But like any typical middle-class Nairobian, the idea or the thought of me walking home was non-negotiable. I wasn't doing it. But I sat in that traffic long enough for my bladder to remind me, you need to do something here, miss, because it's an emergency. So I considered defeat and I walked home. Let's just say that was the best decision I had ever made in my life. That evening, I had an epiphany. I wanted everybody to experience this. I wanted other people to actually get home on time. I'm an urban planner by profession. It wasn't until I started walking and cycling that I came face to face with my own incompetence. We were designing cities that were bound to get stuck. Cities with no footpaths, no cycle tracks, poor drainage, cities that were not thinking about the vulnerable road user and the majority of road users in Nairobi, and in Kenya by a greater extent. So I quit the profession, and I did not want to be associated with urban planning. I didn't feel worthy enough of that title. But after several years of being away from that profession, I was approached by an international organization to learn something called transport planning. I finally found a way to fix the mistakes. Now, I use the knowledge and the experiences I have as a pedestrian and a cyclist to push for change. I have a challenge for all of us. I know Nairobi is no cycling haven, not by a long stretch. We have boulders we have to jump. We have drainages that are as wide as rivers that we have to cross. But just as we were able to reshuffle things to wake our children up at 5 in the morning, I want to challenge you to reshuffle things around and maybe start changing how you travel. Get rubber shoes, get sneakers, leave your house early, walk to work, and maybe when we finally change how we travel, we might just save our sanity and change the planet, save the planet while at it. Thank you.